Welcome to the Backyard Bouquet podcast, where stories bloom from local flower fields and home gardens. I'm your host, Jennifer Galizia of the Flowering Farmhouse. I'm a backyard gardener turned flower farmer located in Hood River, Oregon. Join us for heartfelt journeys shared by flower farmers and backyard gardeners. Each episode is like a vibrant garden, cultivating wisdom and joy through flowers. From growing your own backyard garden to supporting your local flower farmer, the Backyard Bouquet is your fertile ground for heartwarming tales and expert cut flower growing advice. All right, flower friends, grab your gardening gloves, garden snips, or your favorite vase because it's time to let your backyard bloom. Welcome back to another episode of the Backyard Bouquet podcast. Today, we're delighted to have Meg McGuire from Red Daisy Farm joining us. Nestled just 20 miles north of Denver and Brighton, Colorado, Red Daisy Farm is more than just a flower farm. It's a vibrant hub for the community and visitors alike. Meg and her family of 5 have transformed their property into a multifaceted retreat, offering everything from wholesale flowers to unique farm stays. At Red Daisy Farm, you can find a rich selection of DIY by-the-bucket flowers, special order arrangements, and community-supported agriculture flower shares. Beyond blooms, they offer a cozy bed and breakfast and a charming cottage house, and a truly unique getaway experience in 2 beautifully converted silos that provide breathtaking views of the Rocky Mountains, a spot that's been voted one of the top 5 unique places to stay in Colorado. Red Daisy Farm isn't just a place to get your cut flowers. It's a place to experience them in every way imaginable, from farm stays to floral workshops. So without further ado, Meg, it's such a pleasure to have you with us today. With such a unique and diverse offering at Red Daisy Farm, I'm curious, what inspired you and your family to start Red Daisy Farm?
Wow, you're going to make me cry already. It's so my dad grew up on a farm in Iowa, and we'd go back to Iowa several times a year, and we'd love our trips there. And so he happened to pass away about 10 or 11 years ago. And he helped us buy this farm, and he loved this farm. He found out it, reminded him of Iowa and being at home. So we started the farm, and always wanted to grow gardens, and I've always been a vegetable gardener, so I did that. But we started growing gardens when we first moved here, and we found out all the plants were dying, and we didn't know why. And we had our water tested, and the water was it was not conducive with growing. It was loaded with sodium. So we had to research, and we found finally a system called Zetacor. So if anybody has too much sodium in their water, a Zetacor system is your answer, and I can get you the information on that. But so we finally got the water fixed, started growing beautiful gardens. My dad passed a few years after that, and my cousin was just engaged, and I was kind of in a big depression with my dad dying. And she asked me if she could have her wedding here at the farm. And I thought, oh my gosh, my farm's really not wedding ready, but I'll see what I can do. And it really pulled me out of the funk of depression with my dad passing. And so I started researching and Googling what's the easiest flower to grow. Because I said, well, I'll grow your flowers also for the wedding. So she was so excited about that. And then I thought, okay, I'm just going to Google everything and see what I can figure out as far as growing some, rows of flowers so she can have flowers at her wedding. Well, we got right to work, and we started laying water lines and clearing fields, and we even built a hoop house. I had 6 months to do all this. She asked me in February. Yeah, February she asked me, and then her wedding was in August. So by the time the weather was nice, I had about 6 months to figure out how to become a flower farmer real quick. But so I that first year grew gorgeous dahlias and zinnias and whatever was the easiest thing I could find to grow. And then I was bit by the flower love of, farming. And so it just kind of unfolded after that. Every year, florists caught on the next year, and it just snowballed. Everybody wanted fresh local flowers. And so now we're 11 years in, and we're still, fighting to meet the local demand for flowers. And there's thankfully tons of new flower farmers that have come up and about in the last 4 or 5 years. So um, it helps take a load off of us, because I hate telling people, no, I'm sorry, I can't fill an order, because I just am out of product. So that's kind of how we got to flower farming. And then the other things came along with it. We had a guest house on the property, and my sister had lived there originally. She moved out, and I thought, well, I'm going to just try and Airbnb it. And so we put that on Airbnb, and it went really well because we're really centrally located, 20 minutes to downtown Denver, 20 minutes to the airport, 30 minutes to Boulder. So you can get to places really easily from our farm. And then a few years later, I always have to have something to do or project to work on. We had 2 old grain silos on the farm, and I thought, I'm going to build those out, and I'm going to make another little Airbnb. And then we built the Airbnb there, and we've had those going for the last 5 years. And so it's just been, kind of one project after the next. And then we also do hip camp, which people will bring their RVs and hook up and hip camp and stay here for a few nights. And so, yeah, it is really kind of an experience when you come here.
Wow, that is amazing. And this all started 11 years ago.
Yes, this is our 11th year of farming.
Did
Yeah,
you
I
ever
can't believe
imagine
it.
that?
No,
Did,
I actually was like, thinking, oh, I'll be retired by the time I'm 50. Well, now I'm almost 54, and I'm still farming, and I still love it, but it's getting harder physically. You get older and you get bad knees and bad hips and bad backs. But thankfully, I have 2 young, tall, strong, strapping sons who are 23 and 27, and they are now full-time employees of the farm as of, the last 2, 3 years. Once they got done with college, they came back to the farm, and they're my right and left hand men.
that's awesome. I love that your children were able to come back and work side
I
by side with you.
Yes, I feel very, very blessed that I get to work with my children, and they actually want to work with us, because some kids are like, I'm out of here. I'm going to go do what I want to do. But even my daughter, she's 17 now, and she works with us in the summers part time, and works at another farm called Lulu's down the road part time with her friends. And so it's a family affair, and it's just something very special, sacred.
I love that. Have your children always been active on the farm, or is this something that blossomed into a love for them?
Well, they actually used to hate doing chores, farm chores. They would say, Mom, when they were 12 or 13, why do we have to do this kind of work? Our friends don't have to do this. And I said, well, that's just the way it is. We live on a farm, and this farm sustains us, right? It puts food on our table. So um, at first they hated it. Just, I think a lot of it was age related. But I think they've really grown to respect it and love it.
It's so nice to hear. I have a 9-year-old, and I talk about her occasionally when I talk to other moms
Right.
who are also farmers. And we try and do little things. This morning, she was given a bowl, and she went out and harvested the berries for her smoothie.
Oh, that's so sweet.
But there's some things she just doesn't like, and it's encouraging to hear that your children have fallen in love with the
Yeah.
farm and are still actively involved in it.
Yeah, I feel, like I said, I feel so blessed that, that they do want to be here. And I've always told them, go find your passion in life and go do what you want to do in life. And you're not, obligated to the farm. And, they've had off farm jobs in the past few years, but they always come back to the farm. And this last year, maybe 2 years, it seems like they're pretty solid on board, and, just wanting to make this their living and their livelihood too.
That's amazing. So let's go back, and I'm going to have you help us paint a picture for our listeners of your farm. Since it's a family affair, it must be fairly large to be able to employ both of your sons who have graduated college.
Hmm.
You have the flower farm, you have the cottage that's a bed and breakfast, you have the silos, and you have a hip camp.
Hmm.
Describe your farm for us. Paint a picture so we can visualize it as we're listening to this conversation.
Well, there's good and bad sides to, the whole picture. It's definitely a beautiful, aesthetically, it's a beautiful place. I mean, we work really hard. Literally pay two gals, each part-time, so one full-time, um, salary to just weed the property. Literally, it's like a full-time job. And we only have 4 acres here on this farm. So it's not a large space, but there's nobody to the east, south, or west of us. So we have like 80 acres around us that's just open farmland. And that was
Amazing.
originally part of our farm. But unfortunately, the last family who was here for 67 years, we're only the third family to be here, they sold it off to the developers. So we're praying that somebody doesn't come up and about. So it is a beautiful space. You have amazing views of the Rocky Mountains. Like, it's just breathtaking to me. I've lived here my whole life, and there's just some sunsets and stuff that you just are in awe of. So it's a beautiful place to be. You can walk through the flower fields with your coffee or your cocktail. We have an all natural swimming pond, which is fairly large. It's 50 foot by 75 foot, 10 feet deep. It has koi fish. You can swim. You can get on a floaty. You can do laps. So it is definitely a relaxing place. We have a big deck where it's shaded with a pergola, and you can, again, hang out, read a book, or have a cocktail or coffee or whatever. So there's a lot of beauty to the place, and there's we're always as a family meeting new people, strangers coming to the property and entertaining and hosting. Like today, we're getting ready for an engagement party that's happening here tomorrow evening, and the guests come today at 3, so we'll check them in, and then we'll, set up tables. And I just got done doing the 4 flower arrangements. So just, inviting the community in, and we're so grateful that, they help sustain us, because without them, we couldn't do it. And then there's, the side of we work from May to October nonstop. And it's very grueling. And especially when, like right now, the last few weeks, the temps have been in that mid to high 90s. And so you either have to get out and work really early, and then go out late at night when it's cooler. I was out there yesterday, though. I got stuck out there doing some stuff at 5 at night, and it was just grueling. It was so hot and sweaty and dirty work. So I don't think people really realize the amount of work and hard physical labor that goes into maintaining a farm. And then again, you have to, I used to always go over and clean the cottages and I still clean the silos, but so to manage all of the flower farm work, and then cleaning cottages and getting them turned over so they're perfect for the next guests. And we're just go from sun up to sundown from May to October.
That's a long season.
It is. It is. And I'm grateful for it because, it's seasonal, but then we get our nice 2 or 3 months of do nothing during the winter. We try and be done putting the farm to bed by November, and then we get to take November, December, January off, and then we start seeding usually end of January.
Okay. So you get a
Mhm.
few months to recharge your
We
batteries
do.
and
And
then
it's
get
so
going again.
needed. Yeah.
Yes. Someone gave me a great analogy recently about flowers don't bloom all year long. So why should we expect ourselves to be blooming all the
Absolutely. I
time?
love that, right? We need our downtime, we need our rest, we need to recharge. And I've always been the type of person, it's hard for me to sit still. But the older I get, I'm like, okay, resting is not something I should feel guilty about. My body needs that, my mind, so I'm really learning to love to slow down a little bit, and rest, because it's needed.
It's a hard thing to learn as a farmer because we're
Oh, it
so
is.
used to being on the go
Yeah.
nonstop, especially from that, what is it, May through October, like you
Hmm.
just mentioned. I mean, and for people that do tulips or other spring flowers, that
Oh, it's
season can
longer.
start even earlier.
Hmm.
I did my season, I think my tulips started blooming end of March this year.
Oh, wow.
And so I was
That's
already
great.
tired coming into the season
Yes.
this year.
Yes, absolutely. I've attempted tulips many times, and for some reason they just elude me. I can't get them down, and I don't have a proper indoor grow space, so I've kind of just given up on them, but I love them.
They're beautiful, but I could
They
see how
are.
that could be really hard in Colorado where you are
Oh,
if you're not forcing them indoors.
yeah, it's crazy. Our temps are all over the place. So being a flower farmer is very hard. Then you add our climate into it in Colorado, and it's almost the definition of insanity because I'm not joking. I think we've been hailed on, out of 11 years, we've been hailed on, I think, 7 of the
Oh,
years,
wow.
to where it absolutely demolishes the crops. And we have to cut the crops down, fertilize, and just wait 3 or 4 weeks for them to come back. And so at first, it was so funny because I used to like go out into the fields. This is when I first started. I was so sensitive, and I would cry when my crops were just demolished. And I mean, how do you not? You've already spent 3 months, starting them from seed and babying them every day. Then you get them out there and they're doing great. And then 20 minutes of hail just wipes them out. And so I've seen so
Wow.
many farmers being hailed on lately, and it's just like heartbreaking because I've been there. I know how it feels, but I used to lay down and cry in my field and just be like, "Why is this happening?" And now I just am like, you know what? It is what it is, and I have faith that everything's going to work out and we're going to be okay. And I think it used to devastate me so much because this is our livelihood. If we lose
Mhm.
$30,000 worth of crop, that's a huge chunk that, how do we make it up? But my faith's become stronger, and I just know that we're going to be okay. We get through every month, somehow, some way, by the grace of God, and we're going to be fine, you know?
That's a great mentality to have because it is easy to fall in that rut of when something happens, like, oh my gosh, what just happened? And how am I going
Yeah,
to rebound? Especially if
devastating.
you only have one crop, it can be really
Oh, it
stressful.
it's very, very hard. And so not only is it physically hard, but it's a mental game. You really have to get tough mentally and, have that faith or whatever you want to call it, that it's all going to work out. And you learn real quick that you can't control these things. They're totally out of your control, and you just have to roll with the punches.
Totally.
Hmm.
Now, you have 4 acres
Hmm.
on your farm. How much of that is dedicated to growing flowers?
I'd say we grow an acre, a full acre of flowers. They're all different areas of the farm. So our house is kind of in the middle of the property, and then um, we have a big field of peonies, about 3,000 peonies just to the east of the house, and then we have a big old historic barn. It's not big, but it's a nice sized barn. And then behind the barn and the side of the barn, we've got more growing fields. And then we have another 2 growing fields next to the pond. And then you go over by the cottage house, and then there's a field north of the cottage house that's full of flowers. So it's just like a whole circle, 360, throughout the property of different fields, growing fields.
That sounds beautiful. So as you walk throughout your property, there's always something to see.
Everywhere. Yeah. Yeah, and we've tried to incorporate a lot more perennials lately just because it's a lot less work than annuals. And so we've incorporated them into the landscape as much as possible so that, not only beautifies, but we can cut from them too.
What are some of the perennials that you have added to your farm?
Oh, I've tried so many, and some stick and some don't. And my favorite one's the nine bark. They have the different colors, the lime, the wines. So the nine barks. But here in Colorado, you have to have an on drip line, or it's just not going to survive. Where our climate is so dry, I don't think we've even had an inch of rain in the last 6 weeks. So. Um, I've learned a lot. It's just been an ongoing learning process, but mostly the nine barks I love, like the bridal spirea. Let's see what else. A lot of vines I've put in. Um, what else is woodies that I put in? Oh, a lot of lilacs, different varieties. There were some old lilacs on the farm when we moved here, but there just wasn't much because unless it's on drip, it's just not surviving.
Right. So you
Hmm.
have drip lines throughout your property then.
Oh, yeah, everywhere. And that's a whole job in itself. A line gets cut, a line gets clogged. You got to go and bang them out with your knife. And so we've had our lines in, most of our Netafin lines in for um, 9 or 10 years, and they're just at the point where I need to replace them. But then again, that's a big expense. So, people don't see the little things that you have to deal with day in, day out, and always putting out fires or troubleshooting when you're on a farm or running a farm.
Absolutely. Let's talk about
Hmm.
the irrigation if we can. So
Hmm.
you have drip lines. What's your source of water? Because I know it can be very dry in Colorado in the summer
Yeah, so
months.
thankfully we have a 350-foot deep well, and our farm literally runs off of that main well, and then we have a side shallow well that's 40-foot deep. And that does help irrigate some of the yard. It's a fairly large yard. We do some small weddings and stuff, so it's nice to have that green grass. But so those two wells feed the farm, and I'm not joking when I tell you our water's running 24/7 during season because it's watering all these different fields, and then it also services all. So we have our house, we have the guest house, we have the silos, and then we have a studio where my oldest son lives. And then what else do we feed? Just the yard and lawn. And so it's running 24/7 pretty much during
That's a
season.
lot to irrigate.
It is. And so we couldn't do it if we were on city water. I mean, who can afford the water bill?
Yes. Yeah, I'm fortunate. We have what's called farmers irrigation here,
Oh,
but
good.
it only runs from April to October 1st.
Mm-hmm.
And because it's runoff from Mount Hood, where we are from the mountain, um, there's so much sediment this time of year that
Mm-hmm.
irrigation lines are the bane of my existence some days
Yes.
because they clog, like you
Mm-hmm.
said. I'm constantly cleaning the
Mm-hmm.
filters, opening up the end lines and letting them come out. Yesterday, I was trying to water my seedlings in the greenhouse, and I was like, this water looks like chocolate milk right
Oh,
now. And
yeah.
coming out of the hose, it was
Yep.
so dirty.
Been there,
And
done that. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, we get the
so
same thing. So there's just so many issues you have to literally deal with, and on a daily basis go out and fix, you know?
yes. I
Mhm.
had planned to be planting in the ground. I wasn't planning to work on irrigation all day and straightening out the lines. I don't know about you, but
Yeah.
my lines in the heat will bend up and come out of place. No matter how many irrigation or landscape staples I put down,
Yes.
they're constantly moving and
Always.
readjusting them. And then you pull
Mhm.
them too far and you pull it out.
Pop it
And
open. Yeah, exactly. I know. I hear you on that. It's very frustrating. And I used to pay somebody when I first started to come out and fix every little time I had, a line break. And it's just like, you know what? This is ridiculous. I'm just going to teach myself how to do this so that I can just get it done and be on to the next thing. And so I've taught myself, and then I had to teach both my sons, and now they go and fix the irrigation, and I don't have to deal with it. So I'm grateful
lucky
for
you.
that. Yeah.
Yes. Now, is your pond also on the well water?
No, so we filled it initially with well water, and we have to do like when it's hot like this and it evaporates, we have to top it off with the hose with coming from the well water once a week, maybe twice a week depending on the heat. But it usually evaporates good, 3 or 4 inches, and so we top that off and keep it full.
And that's something that you created on your property. Is that
Hmm.
correct?
We did. I actually am a water person, and I grew up a swimmer, and I always just love water. So that was the one thing our farm was missing, and it actually used to be a old cattle kind of, it was kind of maybe 3 feet deep, to where the cattle could go and get water or get cooled off. Um, so I was just like researching, and I researched it for 2 or 3 years on the internet, and it's basically a European concept. And so it doesn't have any chemicals. It's just like you're creating a natural ecosystem, and the water kind of takes care of itself. I mean, there are some things we have to do throughout the year, but we have koi fish, frogs. The natural wildlife helps keep the algae down. They eat a lot of the stuff that's in it. And so we built that by hand in 2015. Me, my husband, and my two boys, and all of their friends. And it was the biggest project that I will never do again. But we had quotes professionally to build it for about $200,000. And we found a guy on the internet who was retiring, and he sold us a little kit for 20,000, talked us through how to build it, and we built it for 20 grand instead of 200,000. And it's been such a nice amenity to have for our guests. And after a hot day of farming, we jump in, and some days on the weekends when it's just me and the kids and my family, we'll get in and do, floaties and barbecue. And so it's a great little perk to have on the farm.
That sounds amazing.
We love it.
How deep is it?
It's 10 feet deep. 10 feet. So
Okay.
the fish that are in there, they go down and live there in the winter and survive the winters just fine. But yeah, there's probably hundreds of koi fish in there.
Amazing. Does it ever freeze over in the wintertime?
It does, yeah. So it probably freezes when it gets real cold, 4 to 5 inches thick. And I think the boys have probably dared each other to walk out on it in the winter. And thankfully nobody's fallen in. So yeah, it does get pretty solid.
No ice skating on it, though.
No ice skating. Nope.
Okay.
Maybe if we were in Minnesota, but not here.
Your property sounds amazing. I have family in Longmont,
Oh,
Colorado,
well,
and
you
I
need
would
to come
love to.
see. Come
I
see us.
know. Well,
Definitely.
your silos, I was reading before our conversation today that it was voted one of the top 5 unique places to stay in all of
Hmm.
Colorado.
Well, yeah,
Tell
we had Fox 31 come out a few years ago. I don't know if it's been 2 or 3 years now, and they, um, came and visited and took pictures, and then they had us on the news with a few other Airbnbs, and we were voted one of the top 5 unique places to stay in Colorado because, first of all, who can say they've stayed in a grain silo? And then, second of all, you have an amazing view of the Rocky Mountains. And then just all the other amenities, I think, the pool, the hot tub, the flower fields. It's just unique.
That is so neat. So when guests come and stay in the silos or the cottage house, are they allowed to go out in your flower field and pick flowers, or how do you manage that aspect?
So we don't allow them, unfortunately, to pick flowers just because we're such a rigorous operation as far as crops, and that really is a large part of our income is the flower crops and the flower sales to the florists every week. But they can, and we always put out fresh flowers in the silos so that they can enjoy the flowers that we grow here. We do the same for the cottage house. We put one in each bedroom and one on the family room table. So we want them to enjoy the flowers. And then we, of course, encourage them to go out with their cup of coffee in the morning and walk through the flower fields or whatever time of day, and see what we do here and what we grow here.
I bet that is so magical for people, especially waking up on the front range and seeing the Rocky Mountains and a field full of flowers. Because I know when I drive through the Front Range, everything is so dry and barren. So I can only imagine how magical it must be to have this 1 acre.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it's throughout 4 acres, your whole 4 acres of just color
It is
everywhere has
pretty
got to be
spectacular. I've had a
spectacular.
few people be like, "Well, I thought there would be more flowers being on a flower farm," and it depends on, of course, what time of the year they're here. First of all, and second of all, we're harvesting so hard that a lot of the times, there's not like a full row of dahlias blooming. There never is because we're harvesting right when they're ready, and we make deliveries twice a week. So we're always striving to fill the flower buckets and fill the flower van and have product for our florists. So, like if you came in June, the first part of June, people are in awe of the front peony field with 3,000 peonies in it. Because we don't obviously harvest the whole bush of peony. We can't because it needs to regenerate itself. So we harvest about 2/3 of our peony bushes and leave the other third, and that's when it's spectacular.
I bet that's incredible to see. I love that you shared that you are cutting most things because I think most
Hmm.
people think when they think of a flower farm, they think of fields full of flowers, but unless you're growing
Yes.
for seed,
Yes.
you want to be
Yeah,
cutting those or you're
absolutely.
losing money.
People don't understand that, but once I explain it to them, they're like, "Oh, yeah, that's why there's not a row full of blooming dahlias or zinnias because we cut them the minute we can and get them ready for
Right.
sale."
Last year, I decided to let most of mine go to seed on my dahlias. I had about 2,000 dahlias, and for the end of the season, I was
Mhm.
trying to grow for seed, so I let everything go to flower.
Beautiful.
And it was so magical, and I'd
Yes.
never seen our field like that because I was always cutting everything, and I
Yes, and I someday when I get old enough or I'm ready to retire, I'm just gonna say, okay, boys, I pray that I can get to this point. We're taking this year off from harvesting, and we are gonna let every field just bloom its heart out, and we're gonna invite people to come take photos and just enjoy the flowers because I've never seen them in full bloom either, and it's been 11 years of farming, so I'm waiting for that day too.
it's magical. I hope you can experience that someday. So you started with it was your niece
That's
getting
correct.
married, is that right?
So we've kind of pulled back on weddings. I'm getting older, and weddings are a lot of work. And even if they're the micro wedding, there's
They
still
are.
a lot of work. So we used to do big weddings, 150 to 200 people. Pulled that back to micro weddings the last few years. And this is the first summer I have not had a wedding on the books. And I don't know if that's because I projected that I didn't want any out into the universe, but I think it is. I just felt like I needed a little more of a break this year. So I'm not saying no to weddings. I just, if it happens to come together and it's the right people, then yes, and definitely we'll always do them for friends or family if that's what they want. But yeah, we're kind of just, me and my husband are getting to the point where he's 65, so he's retired pretty much. But living on the farm, he's not retired. He works every day out here. And I'm almost 54, and so we're ready to kind of slow down. And the boys are at the point where they're going to take over in the next year or two after my daughter graduates high school. And so things are kind of just shifting here.
Can you explain? I love that you have this kind of succession planning where
hmm
your children are taking over. How do you prepare for that? I mean, because I'm sure there's other listeners who maybe they don't
hmm
have their own children, but they want a
hmm
succession plan for the future. How have you made sure that your farm is set up so that your boys can take
Well,
over?
I don't have all the answers, but we live and we learn from our mistakes, and we learn as we go, hopefully, and we try and work smarter, not harder. But I'm just trying to always shoot for shape. Like, if the boys are taking over, they need to know every aspect of this business. So I've slowly, like the last 2 years, 2 years ago, it used to be me and my husband doing all the flower deliveries. So I put them out there, and was I nervous? Yes, absolutely. Would the florists take well to them? And they all love the boys. So it actually was so relieving when I knew that they were going to be fine doing all the deliveries. Um, we've built such good relationships with our florists. That's another very important thing is build, if that's your avenue of sales, build great relationships and strong foundations with your florists. And then, you know, you've got that loyalty. 11 years down the road, we still have the same florists. Um, but yeah, I just try and set them up. And, I've had a hard time because I'm kind of a control freak, and I want to do everything my way and the right way. And so I've had to let go, and I've had to learn that in order for them to learn, I have to just throw this at them, tell them, show them the best that I can, and they need to go in and make their own mistakes and learn from that. And working a family business is not easy. It's like, that you have different personalities, different dynamics. Not only do we work together, but we live together. We're all on the same property in our own spaces, of course. But so it's been very challenging, but we've learned so much. And as the kids get older and mature a little more, it's easier too. You don't have these immature, entitled attitudes with the younger generation that think, well, I'm going to do this, but I need $100 an hour for it. Well, that's not happening. So there's a lot of moving parts, but I'm just trying to, you know, ease them into it. I started 2 years ago saying, okay, if you're going to take over, this is where we start. And now we're watching things unfold and be successful. And now I have to, in the next year or two, get them to the administrative side of it all, because sending invoices is still my job. And, following up if somebody hasn't paid an invoice, answering emails, taking orders. I do all of that on top of it. So eventually, shortly, here it'll come where I'll have to teach them that side of the business of it too. Paying the taxes, filing all of the paperwork, doing all the things.
So, do you see yourself staying involved in the farm in 2 years from now, or are you planning to totally relinquish all control to the boys?
So I can't imagine not always being a part of this place. So when we built the studio, I built it out to where it would be a place for me and my husband to retire so that the kids could come take over the big house and have their family and get married and have their kids. So I've always had this long vision of what things looked like. And I'll be here as long as they'll have me, you know?
I love that. I love that you've put so much thought and time into building a place that your family can stay on and that you can retire and watch your children take
Thank
over.
you.
That's
Thank
really
you. So,
beautiful.
yeah, we just we hope that it keeps going smoothly, but there's always it's just life. You're going to always have issues and problems and things to deal with, but you just have to. It's all about how we react and all about how our attitude is with our responses to these, issues.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, we can't choose
Right.
what
How we
happens to us, but
react.
we
That's
can choose
right.
how we
Yep.
respond. That's a beautiful reminder. I needed that today. Let's talk about your flowers a little bit more. With 1 acre of flowers, what do you do with all of
We
your
sell them.
flowers?
We sell them. So we work with a good 8 to 10 florists every week. We Tuesday we go and deliver to 2 or 3 florist shops. We mostly work with retail. We've shifted that too. Like when we first started, it was basically with wedding florists. And that's shifted. We've had a Colorado flower collective that's opened up in Colorado, and they can service those florists so much better than I could. So it's a lot less stressful for me now, but I work mainly with retail florists who have storefronts. And so we go to Boulder and we deliver to 2 or 3 florists there. Then we head to Longmont and deliver to 3 or 4 florists there. And basically, we load up our big van. We also take pre orders, obviously, when they have weddings and stuff, they'll send their needs. But we fill our big van up, and it's a walk-up van, so you can walk in and fill it with flowers on both sides and on the floor, wherever we can cram them in. And it's like an ice cream truck. They come in, they pull what they want, we write down what they got, and they're on their way. We're on our way. They love it. So we do that every Tuesday, and then every Thursday we go to Denver and surrounding areas and go to 3 or 4 different florists there. And then I have florists who will come just randomly, who are picking up smaller orders or a wedding order or whatnot. We also do a lot of the do-it-yourself buckets, which has been great this year. I love it because it's a really easy way, a really easy stream of income to fill a bucket with, whatever colors they ask for, and then they come pick it up and they are off to do their own wedding flowers. And people love it. It's an experience for them and their bridesmaids or their family to design the flowers for the wedding. So that's been a really good gig for us the last few years.
Okay, let's go back to the florist because I'm very intrigued. So, do you send out a weekly availability list, or the florists just know that you're going to show up with your delivery truck and they get to shop
Both. So
whatever
I
they
sent
want?
out right at the beginning of the season. I sent out all the crops that I've planted, the dates that they're available. So like mid June through mid July. So they have an idea of when it's available. I put the pricing on there, which is pretty set. I mean, sometimes it'll change depending on supply and demand. Um, And then they'll get that yearly availability of what we're growing. Of course, there's always going to be a crop failure or two, or the grasshoppers are going to come decimate something. Um, and then they'll just email me and say, I have a wedding next week. They send me a wish list and I need this, this, and this. And then I email them back, this is what I can fill for you. Load it on the van. They take their pre order and then they shop the van and usually find uh, a lot more stuff that they didn't know they needed. So that's good. Yeah.
That's amazing. So, tell us about your van. What does it look like? Paint
It's
a
just a
picture for
big
us.
white transit van, no windows on it. And it, like I said, it is tall enough. It has the high ceiling so that you could walk up into it. We've had my brother-in-law build in some wooden shelves so that we could have different shelves for the flower buckets to sit on. And then we have crates lined on the floor that we also fill with buckets full of flowers and foliages. So it's basically like I said, an ice cream truck for florists. You come in and you pull out your bunches of flowers, and there you have it.
So, do you have a fan or
So we have
cooling
an
system in
AC,
the?
just the regular AC unit, but I found this system on the internet. It's called Cool Breeze, I think. It's basically a cooler that you put a few bags of ice in and some water, and then you turn that on, and it shoots out towards the back of the van, and it keeps the whole van cool and the flowers cool. I
It's
think it's
called
called,
Cool
I don't
Breeze.
quote me on it, but you could follow up with me. I think it's called Cool Breeze. And it's just, like I said, like a plastic um, cooler that you would use for camping, but it's set up with an apparatus on top to where it blows the cold air from the ice and the water.
We'll make sure
Yes.
we have a
Yep. I'll
link
get
in the
that
show
to
notes
you.
today so our listeners can
Yep.
check out the
Definitely.
actual product. That sounds amazing. So, what temperature do you keep the van at then for the deliveries? Because it can be 100
Yeah.
degrees in Colorado when you're delivering
Thankfully,
flowers,
we've
right?
never had a problem with flowers even wilting while they're on the van. A lot of times, like with peonies and stuff or roses, the flowers that are more delicate, I'll add a cup of ice to the actual bucket of water. So that helps keep them nice and cool. But we've never had a problem with flowers getting too warm. I think, first of all, because everybody's got the routine down, it's just in and out. We might be at a florist for 10 or 15 minutes and then on to the next. So it's a really quick. We always have our schedule down about who we're going to first because we have to switch it up to keep it fair to the florists. So for like example, between Boulder and Longmont, we'll switch off who gets first pick every week, so that everybody at one point gets first pick of the best stuff. But no, I've never had a problem with the van getting too hot.
I love that. That sounds so amazing. Do you have any photos
Yeah, I
to
can
show
send
the
some
setup?
photos.
We will include those in the show notes also because I'm sure there's other people like myself going, "Ooh, that sounds like such a great idea." Because some of my florists are further away from me. And so for them, that would open up more opportunities
Oh,
to move
absolutely.
more
It's a great
flowers with
process,
them
and
each
and
week.
knock on wood, most weeks we're blessed enough where we sell out, and then we don't have anything to carry over, and we just get up and harvest and start building it up for the next week.
That's amazing. So you have your standing florists, you have your DIY buckets. Do you still do your
I
CSA
do the
subscription
peony
also?
CSAs. We just got into shipping, which I never wanted to ship flowers before, but peonies are pretty hardy and easy to ship. So this is my second year of shipping peonies. So I've done a 4 week, which I think I'm going to bump down to a 3 week. Just because, I do dry harvest and I do dry store them in the cooler. But after 3 or 4 weeks, I feel like the integrity of the flower just lessens. And you're not going to get as much vase life as you would have if it was, cut and shipped within a week or two. And the third week is fine. But
Sure.
after that, I feel like it's a little precarious, and I'd rather not disappoint my customers. So I, just by trial and error, I'm like, okay, I'm going to cut it down to three weeks next week for that CSA. Then I do one in the fall, which is more of a Dahlia lisianthus CSA. That is a 4 week, and it's just local pickup because I just don't want to get into trying to ship, other flowers that aren't as hardy as a peony.
So your CSA, they come to the farm and pick up.
hmm Yep, they come to the farm, and most people love that. A lot of them are, within 10 or 15 minutes of the farm, but we do have some people that come out of Denver or Longmont or somewhere.
I'm sure it's a fun little day trip for them to come and see the
Yeah,
beautiful flowers.
yes.
Are they allowed to walk around and look at the flowers when they come pick
Oh,
up your?
absolutely. My husband's always out there on his little golf cart, and he'll pick up the people who drive up and just want to know about the farm, and he'll give them a little tour on the cart, and we'll give them a card, and then hopefully see them again for lodging or flowers or whatever events.
That sounds so fun. Do you move your flowers any other way? You do workshops, is that correct?
We do. We used to do like a yoga and flowers, and we do that 3 or 4 times a summer. People would come out and do an hour of yoga, and then we do an hour of flower arranging, which is real fun. And then this year we had a peonies and prosecco event, which was a hit. We had about 25 guests, and we took them on a farm tour, talked all about the farm and the peonies, and then they got to sit down with one of my good florists who came and led the design part of making a nice table bouquet for them to take home and enjoy. So we do a few events every year. Again, I don't like to do too many because then I feel like I never have a day off or a weekend off. So um, yeah, so every year it's a little bit different. I think I might do a fall dahlia arranging class and farm tour because everybody really loved. That was the first time I've ever done the farm tour, but everybody loved it.
That sounds so fun. Now, you just mentioned if you do too many, you don't give yourself a day off. Do you build in a day off for yourself each week?
So the last 6 or 8 weeks, we were I logged my hours and I was working 50 to 60 hours a week, and I was just exhausted. And I told the boys, okay, you're going to have to up your hours because I need to bump mine down to 40 or less. And like I said, I'm a worker. I like to work, but um, me and my husband are actually going this Wednesday and taking 4 days off to see parts of Colorado that I've never seen, like Telluride and Pagosa Springs and all these beautiful places that I just have not taken the time to go and do. And so, yeah, I'm forcing myself to take this 4 day vacation, but it's much needed and I'm looking forward to it. And also forcing myself to cut down my hours every week because it's not even, it's almost July, but I'm feeling exhausted already.
Yes. Well, when this episode airs, it will be in July already. And I'm in the same
Yeah.
boat as you. I'm going into my sixth season, so I don't have quite as many years under my belt.
Hmm.
But last year, I didn't give myself a day off. From April
Mm.
through all of October, I worked every day of the week and I was
Yeah.
absolutely beat.
Exhausted.
And then we had to move our farm unexpectedly this winter.
Hmm.
And my body was so run down that I've just been lacking in it, any in it. I can't even say the word right now, any energy. And
Energy,
I
I
just took the
know.
last 5 days off before our conversation
Good.
here. My daughter and I flew down to California, visited my
Oh,
parents in Southern California, and we swam every day. And my parents were like, "Don't you want to go out and do stuff?" And I said, "No, I just want to sit around and do nothing."
and do nothing. Oh, I totally get it. And that's why I'm saying it is so important to force yourself to take that even 1 day off a week or, a few afternoons off during the week. Because if we don't have our physical and mental health, our energy to do what we need to do, I mean, we're going to end up making ourselves sick. So we don't want that. And we need to definitely prioritize, putting ourselves first and doing what we need to do to keep us healthy.
Absolutely. I think what's so hard about being a flower farmer for most people is our farms are connected to our house. It's not like we go somewhere
Absolutely.
else. So you're
Hmm.
constantly seeing it. I mean, I can look out my kitchen
Yes.
window and be like, oh, something fell over, or there's a leaking irrigation line,
Yes.
and you can run out at 8 o'clock at night and take care of something. Where if you have an office,
Absolutely.
you don't see that until the
Hmm.
next day when you're back at work. Or,
Absolutely. I agree 1,000%. We cannot cut ourselves off. Like, I can't just say, okay, I'm going home. I'm leaving my work until tomorrow. I'm not joking. I don't know how many times I say in the evenings at about 7 o'clock, I'm going to go check the farm just to make sure there's no irrigation breaks because I do find them a lot. They'll pop off. And so I go check the farm at 7 and I end up out there until 9 o'clock
yep,
until it's like completely cannot see anymore because I found weeds that need to be pulled or something that needs to be harvested or so yeah, you can't separate yourself. It's
no.
very hard.
Those 5 minutes that you're going to head out there quickly become two
Yes.
hours or all
2
day.
hours. Yeah.
And
I totally get it. Yeah.
so,
It's hard.
yeah, well, thank you for sharing that honesty because I think it's hard too these days because I think the comparison is so much higher than probably when you got started. I mean, you can see so many amazing
Oh,
farms on Instagram and you look at
yeah.
that and you go, well, I don't have that. Or for me right now, there's so many farms in warmer zones that already have dahlias blooming. And I have some that are just coming out of the ground. It's like I've got at
Yeah.
least another month till I'm going to have a field of flowers.
Yeah. Oh, totally. I get it. It's hard because the social media is obviously it's a blessing and a curse because we find ourselves comparing what we have to what we see on Instagram.
Hmm.
And a lot of it's not reality and I, learned that, there's behind the scenes no matter what. Nobody wants to show the dirty side of it or, the failing crop or whatever it may be. Everybody wants to glamorize it and like they're out in their dresses, sundresses, and they're just picking armloads of flowers and frolicking through the flowers, and that's really not reality when it comes to being a true flower farmer and literally making a living at this. It's just hard, dirty, hot, sweaty work. And, we have to keep that in mind. I mean, if I could market better and if I'd like to show my face on Instagram, I'd probably have more followers, but I just don't feel comfortable doing that. So I'm not going to force myself to do something, just to grab a few thousand more followers. And so, some people are great at marketing and that's just their gig and more power to them. But it's a great tool because I learn a lot from other farmers. I'm still learning. Like I will never not be learning when you're flower farming, especially when you're trying to figure out what's right for your climate. And you might even have your own microclimate. In my zone of 5A or B, I probably am a 4A or B down in the peony field because it sits down in a valley. So you just learn all of these things as you go. But um, you know, it, social media is definitely an interesting thing to deal with in this time and age. And, there's pros and cons to all of it. And you just have to take the good parts from it and leave the other stuff.
Definitely. Well, I know when I first started, I had come from, well, I was in corporate America and then I started a photography business, but I was always, because I was always at weddings and stuff, I was always dressed up. I always had my makeup done. I looked
Hmm.
presentable. And so for a long time, I
Right.
wouldn't show up on the camera on my stories because I'm
Right.
like, I've got mud on my face, no makeup, a
Yeah.
sunburn, I'm covered in sweat.
Yeah.
But I found that once I started showing up authentically, I actually had more
That's
people
what they
asking
liked.
good questions and wanting to know
Yes.
because I was sharing not just I'm in a sundress holding a huge bundle of flowers, but
Right.
this is really what goes on. I've got irrigation water all over my face.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. I think people want to see more of the true side of it. And it's more intriguing than just the glamorous, you know, way that people do it. But yeah, it's definitely interesting for sure.
Yeah. Well, kind of on the same lines, you've been doing this for 11 years now. I'm going to put you on the spot. Can you think of one of your more challenging times as a flower farmer that really helped you grow forward as a flower farmer?
Well, I've had so many challenging times. Being in Colorado, we get a ton of hail, and I think I've had 6 or 7 of the 11 years that I've had crops demolished. Um, and so I've built a thicker skin. I'm more resilient now than I was when I first started. Um, and so, when your crop gets demolished by hail, and that's what you need to get you through the winter, it's very devastating. Um, but you cut it down and you fertilize it and you put your pants on the next day and you get up out of bed and you just keep going. And it's like a force stronger than myself. It's like, I know I have to do this and I love to do it, even though it's really hard, but it's also very rewarding. It's like one of the most rewarding jobs I've ever had. And I'm grateful for it. But you just have to be careful that you, like you said, take force yourself to take a day off so you don't end up resenting the whole gig.
Yes.
And there's times where you're just like, why am I doing this? And like I must be crazy, and I could just sell the whole farm and go retire, like really good. And it's more than just the money, and it's a way of life. And I get to see and spend time with my kids every day, and it's just it's something more to it than just a job. It's not just a job. It's a way of life,
Yes.
for sure.
What you've said, what I'm getting from that is that flowers feed the soul. Like, I mean, there's, it's,
Absolutely.
you could go and do a lot of other things that probably make a lot more money, but the
Oh,
joy
absolutely.
and just the connection
And
with
the
family.
joy and the joy on the people's faces when they see what you've grown and you present it to them, whether it's for an event and you've made bouquets, or if it's a bridal bouquet that I've created, and they really do love it. I mean, that's what feeds me. That's what fills me up, is when they see the beauty and appreciate what you've created for them.
Yes. Well, I've had friends visit your farm. One of my friends,
Oh,
Katie
you have?
Lila from Flowers
Oh,
for the
yes.
People,
Yes, Katie. So
which
sweet.
yes, her I'm going to just do a little plug for her because I love her so much. She's such a kind person.
She
She just
is.
launched her whole season of Flowers for the People on YouTube TV. And
Oh,
I
good.
don't know, were you in her season or did she just come out and visit you? I know she has some stuff on Instagram with your farm.
We sold a whole bunch of flowers to them for one of their shows. I'm not
Yes.
exactly sure what it was or the exact one, but yes, that was last summer, I believe. And so she came out to the farm, got a tour, and then we delivered, I don't know, 12 or 14 buckets of flowers for them to use on their filming of whatever episode they were doing.
Yes. Well, I know she spoke so highly of you, and that was how I first heard about you was through Katie
Oh,
and her
that's
videos on
sweet.
Instagram. So I'm glad that That's one positive thing for me of Instagram is the connections. And so I'm grateful for this
Yes,
connection here.
absolutely. Yes, thank you for hitting me up. I'm
Yes.
so honored.
One question I didn't ask you today is how did you get the name Red Daisy Farm?
I don't even know if I like the name Red Daisy Farm now, but I was researching flowers and it came up as a beneficial flower. And I just love the connection of it's helping other flowers survive because it's, fighting off the insects or whatever it does to repel them. It just stuck. I was like, well, it's a beneficial and I want to be beneficial in this world. So it's going to be Red Daisy
I
Farm.
love it. Is your barn
Yeah.
red?
It's not red. And people always say, well, why didn't you paint your barn red? Well, it's just one more thing we haven't gotten to. It's just a metal covered, it's a wood barn, beautiful
Okay.
wood. You walk in there and it's like a cathedral, like you're in a church. It's beautifully built. But they had to actually cover it with metal in order to keep the wood from rotting and disintegrating. So it's a beautiful barn, but we don't use it for anything other than storage.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We have covered a lot today. Is there anything
Yes.
that I haven't asked you that you would like to share for our listeners today?
Um, Nothing in particular other than, I would just recommend that if, there's so many people who see the Instagram like we talked about and they, fantasize about having their own flower farm and yes, it's a beautiful, there's so much beauty that's connected to it. But if you're really considering becoming a flower farmer, I would really highly recommend going to work on a farm. It doesn't have to be a flower farm, but any working farm where they're producing, vegetables or perishable products, that's another huge piece of it. It's a perishable item, so you really have to know where you're going to move it to and where you're going to get rid of it and where you're going to push it in a matter of 2 to 3 days because I don't want it around any longer than that. But what I would just say is just really do your research. Don't get caught up in the sensationalized Instagram images of it, and go work on a farm before you say, "Oh, I want to start my own." I'm not saying you have to. I would just say that would be my recommendation.
That is great advice. You really truly get to know what it is like when you put
Yeah.
your hands in the soil
Yeah,
and work with the flowers or the
for
vegetables.
sure.
Thank you
Yes,
for
for
that.
sure.
Well, Meg, it has been such a delight to chat with you. Before we say goodbye today, can you please tell our listeners where can they find you?
So we are at reddaisyfarm.com. That's our website. And then we're on Instagram and Facebook. All you have to do is at Red Daisy Farm, and that should pull us up. And our email, if you want to email us about anything, accommodations, we always say we prefer to direct book. That saves you money. It saves us money on booking any of the accommodations. And that's just our name, reddaisyfarm@gmail.com.
Perfect. So if someone's interested in a farm stay, is there information on your website about that?
There is a little bit of information, but just email me. I'll send you all the links, pricing, all of that information that you would need to make a reservation.
It sounds amazing. I someday hope to stay at your property. I would love to stay in one of those silos. It sounds like such a
Oh,
cool
yes. Well,
experience.
we would love, love, love to have you. So you just let me know when you're coming to town.
Yes. Well, our goal is to run the Boulder Marathon one of these years. Well, the half marathon.
Oh,
So maybe
perfect.
sometime in the fall when my season is slowing down, because sadly, I don't know that I'll ever
Yeah.
get out of the farm this
Uh,
time of year. But
Force yourself to take those few days and go and do things that you need, you want to see and want to do
yes,
for
thank you for that
sure. But
reminder.
come see us anytime. And thank you so much for having us on today.
Thanks, Meg. It was such a delight. And maybe next time I'll get to visit with your boys when they take over the farm.
Oh, yes. I'd love that. I'd love for you to meet the boys and my daughter too. So that'd
Yes,
be great.
that would be a fun future podcast episode. Well, thank you, Meg. You have a wonderful day.
Thank you. You too. Take care.
Thanks. Thank you, flower friends, for joining us on another episode of The Backyard Bouquet. I hope you've enjoyed the inspiring stories and valuable gardening insights we've shared today. Whether you're cultivating your own backyard blooms or supporting your local flower farmer, you're contributing to the local flower movement. And we're so happy to have you growing with us. If you'd like to stay connected and continue this blossoming journey with local flowers, don't forget to subscribe to the Backyard Bouquet podcast. I'd be so grateful if you would take a moment to leave us a review of this episode. And finally, please share this episode with your garden friends. Until next time, keep growing, keep blooming, and remember that every bouquet starts right here in the backyard.